back again with another review, and this is for Kyle. He wanted me to talk about and review the first X-Men film, which came out in 2000. And I have a little history with this movie, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But to get the plot out of the way, you have mutants and humans, and they fear each other. You have Rogue in the film, who is played by Anna Paquin, and she runs away from home, and she finds a ride with Logan, Wolverine, played by Hugh Jackman. And, you know, later on they would meet Professor X, who is played by Patrick Stewart, and he, you know, owns a school of young mutants. You have, you know, Storm in here, who is played by Halle Berry. You have Cyclops, who's played by James Marsden. Jean Grey, who's played by Famke Johnson. And you have our main villain in the film, Magneto, played by Ian McKellen. And there's this war approaching, and, you know, Magneto, you know, has an evil plan in mind, and he needs Rogue to execute this plan. And that's kind of the plot here to the film. The film is directed by Bryan Singer, which we now know about the guy. And yeah, I mean, he tried to, at one point years ago, manipulate underage boys or teenagers. I'm not exactly sure, but we've heard. We know the stories. And there's a reason why he's disappeared. But, you know, Bryan Singer, of course, directed The Usual Suspects. He directed Apt Pupil, which I do have that movie in my collection. You know, he directed this movie, of course. He directed X-Men 2, and later on, Days of Future Past. Well, you know, before that, Superman Returns. He did direct that, which I do like that movie. So Bryan Singer, and there was some stuff behind the scenes with this movie, with Bryan Singer, how, you know, there was drug use, and he would have outbursts and stuff of that nature. So, yeah, you know, sounds like a lot of BS, you know, which now makes sense. It's sort of an acronym for Bryan Singer, BS. And I'm glad that he's disappeared. Like, the last thing that he worked on was Bohemian Rhapsody, but from what I heard, and I do remember he was replaced on that movie by, I forgot the other director, but he was taken out of the equation with directing that movie and replaced with another director. And ever since then, he's been gone. You know, he's disappeared. And I'm glad, to be honest with you. But, you know, I will say, when it comes to this movie, I do like this film. I think it's a solid film. But first, you know, let me talk about the cast here. So, you know, you got Patrick Stewart as Professor X. Great job. I mean, just, you know, the casting here really throughout, it's well casted. Everybody does a great job, from Patrick Stewart as Professor X, you know, Hugh Jackman as, you know, Logan, Wolverine. Perfect casting. You really can't get better than that, which I know, you know, early on in the late 90s, you know, they had looked at, I think, like Mel Gibson, and there was like artwork with Mel Gibson as Wolverine, which that would have been interesting. I would have liked to have seen, you know, Mel Gibson as Wolverine. I think that would have been cool. And at the last minute, like, they almost had that guy from Mission Impossible 2, Douglas Scott, and he was taken out last minute, and Hugh Jackman came in, and to me, knocks it out of the park. And of course, you know, he would play, you know, Wolverine, that character, you know, a few more times, you know, which we thought, you know, Logan would be the last movie, but now he's coming back for Deadpool 3. So, you know, for me, he's definitely one of the best to portray this character. And I think, you know, for me, you're not going to get any better than that. I mean, they can wait another 20 years to recast as Wolverine, but for me, you know, you can't really top Hugh Jackman. And again, he's one of the best. Like, he is the best to play this character. You know, like Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. You also have, you know, Cyclops in the movie, James Marsden. I thought he did a good job here. I like him as an actor. Again, Halle Berry is Storm. Love Halle Berry. Famke Johnson as Jean Grey. And just a few years prior, she was in GoldenEye. She's been in many more stuff. Which I know it's funny now because apparently these characters are coming back for Deadpool 3. The character of Cyclops, the character of Storm and Jean Grey, they're going to come back in cameos for Deadpool 3. But I'm just not all excited. I mean, I'm not really, jumping out of my seat for Deadpool 3 right now. But anyways, going back to the cast here, getting a little sidetracked. Anna Paquin as Rogue. I thought she did fine. I mean, I don't mind her as an actress. But again, I thought she did fine for me. You have other supporting villains here. Well, I forgot to mention Magneto, played by Ian McKellen. To me, he does a great job. I like Ian McKellen as an actor. And, for me, he's the perfect Magneto. In other villains here, you have the character Sabretooth, who's but played by Tyler Mane. And of course, Tyler Mane would be Michael Myers in the Rob Zombie remake of Halloween. I mean, Sabretooth, he's fine, but, for me, I thought, maybe, was it Liev Schreiber? I thought Liev Schreiber did a little bit better of, playing that character. Tyler Mane, he's fine. I mean, like, the look of the character is fine, but, for me, he's not like a standout portrayal. The same thing with, the character of Toad. Ray Park as Toad, which, a year before he played Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace. And I don't mind the character, but, I mean, when I first saw the movie, the character of Toad, was cool. But, I don't know. I mean, I'm not complaining too much, or it's not that I have a big gripe against, the character of Toad, but, I don't know, maybe it's just, I don't know. I like Ray Park, and, and again, I thought maybe he just did fine, again, I don't really have a lot to say about Sabretooth and Toad here. They're fun, kind of like, they're decent lackeys or whatever. Mystique. Yeah, Rebecca Romijn. Minus the Stamos. But, yeah, to me, she is Mystique. I'm sorry, but Jennifer Lawrence, you're not Rebecca Romijn. I think for me, her figure, I remember being 11 or 12, because I did see this in the theater. I saw this film when it came out back in July of 2000, which is hard to believe. But, I mean, come on, everybody was, looking at that figure of Mystique. But anyways, the cast up and down, overall with the cast, everybody's well casted. From Hugh Jackman to Patrick Stewart, James Marsden does a good job, and Halle Berry is Storm, Famke Johnson is Jean Grey. Everybody's well casted, even, the actor, Bruce Davison as the character of Senator Kelly, he does a good job here. So the cast is great. But as far as my history with this movie, it goes back to 1999, because in September of that year, we had a really bad hurricane that came through, and a lot of areas got flooded. A lot of places, got flooded, and our theater now used to be a Lowe's hardware store many years ago. And when that got flooded out, they basically, changed it up and converted into, which is now our movie theater. And so I'm going to assume that it opened up in the spring of 2000, and this is probably the first movie that I saw when our theater opened up. So, yeah, again, this is definitely, while this film isn't my favorite X-Men movie, Definitely, again, means a lot in terms of, with our movie theater. This is the first movie that I remember seeing when it opened up, back in 2000. So, yeah, I mean, again, there's that, soft spot there for this movie. But getting into the film itself, and, to mention some things here. So, right off the bat, you get a good score by Michael Kamen. I really liked the score here. I thought he did a good job with the score. And, the setup between Wolverine and Wolverine and Rogue, dynamic here. Which throughout the movie, Wolverine, out of all the characters, he's concentrated more on. And I can probably understand, but at the same time, if there's one thing I can say about the movie, I do wish that there are the characters where, if they were a little bit more developed, and again, the actors do a fine job, but there's that part of me, while I understand, they wanted to put a little bit more focus on Wolverine, but I'm like, maybe you could have given, Cyclops a little bit more development, along with, Jean Grey and Storm. You could have, I thought their introduction was fine, but again, maybe they could have developed it a little bit more. Maybe this is where you could have brought in a Beast, which apparently I think that was an idea that they wanted to bring in Beast. And if you look online, I think there's like some concept art that early on they wanted to put Beast in this movie. And if I'm wrong, please correct me on that, but I thought I saw an image and I'm like, yeah, I mean, this movie could have used Beast, which they brought him in later in the third film. And I thought Kelsey Grammer did a great job as Beast. But yeah, I mean, I do think that this movie could have used that character. And, maybe a Jubilee. Now, she might be in this movie. I think she's in one of the movies, but I'm not exactly sure. But it would have been cool to see her. So again, I thought, and this kind of goes back to the cast. The cast, they do a good job, but I kind of wish that part of me, that they could have established these characters a little bit better. The bits of action, like, when the action does happen, there's some cool scenes. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that, like, the CGI is the greatest. I mean, you have to bear in mind, this is 2000 here, so, there's a couple of shots of CGI that's not the best to look at, but you get some good moments of action. Of course, a little bit at the train station was fine. The third act and this, like, the Statue of Liberty, finale, it's fine, but there's that part of me that finds it a little bit uninspired, because and granted, this is the first movie, this is the first, X-Men film, but, like, every time I watch the movie and we get to the Statue of Liberty, there's just something that's not really extravagant about the finale for me. Like, there's an okay little fight between Wolverine and Sabretooth, but again, you kind of, I don't know, maybe there should have been a little bit more in the finale. Like, again, it's fine, but it doesn't feel grand or, really inspired. Again, it's fine, but, that's just me. And at the end of the day, X-Men from 2000, again, it's a solid comic book movie. I do like the Rogue and, Wolverine dynamic and their relationship. But also, too, I think that the other characters could have been, fleshed out a bit more, given a little bit more development. But the cast and the way that, they portray these characters, I think that everybody does a great job. Hugh Jackman knocks it out of the park here with his debut as, Wolverine. Patrick Stewart, perfect casting. There's some cool visuals to look at, some good bits of action when they do happen. Maybe it could have used a little bit more action and, possibly, maybe a little bit more in the finale. And yeah, I mean, I think a different director would have been so much better. Maybe you could have had a Jan de Bont, the guy that directed, Speed and Twister. For me, I wonder what he would have done with this movie. Or Rennie Harlin. I love Rennie Harlin, the guy that directed Die Hard 2 and Cliffhanger and, Deep Blue Sea. I wonder what he would have done with this, or just any other director, besides Bryan Singer, and what we now know about the guy and what happened behind the scenes here. But overall, again, solid movie. But that's my review. Thank you to Kyle for the request. Hope you like this review. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.